there's this group of parents who decided to get together at a local school and raise funds to help create more resources for their school and for their children and other children in the school. And so they got together and they designed a few activities and events, and gradually over a few years they built up a repertoire of events and activities across the year that would bring in several $1,000s that could be utilised in different ways throughout the school. And it was much appreciated by the school community and the principal and so on. As new parents came in, they came in and they were kind of inducted, if you like, into this system of what happens, and helped, and they got involved, and some left as their children left the school. And so there was this continual flow of people in and learning the ropes and moving on. After a while though, there were new people came in and they had new ideas. I guess things had changed from when it first began, and they wanted to raise funds in other ways. Either they didn't have the time to do it in the prescribed ways. Anyway, they thought, well, let's go, we'll help raise funds over here, and we'll do these activities and contribute the money as well, which they did, and that increased the amount of money that came in. But the original group, the group who had control over what normally happens, were not happy. They were not happy at all, because they were losing control. There were prescribed ways, there were traditions, there were ways in which this was happening, there was authority, and these newbies were upsetting the system. And you can't be upsetting the system. Even though more money was raised, even though the goal of all of this was to raise funds and more was raised, it just didn't work out for the traditionalists. And so there's a great conflict, and a mediator was brought in, and I'm not sure how it ended. It was a really messy process. And these things often are, as people gather around traditional ways and forms are put in place, structures and belief systems, and there's power and there's control. And it almost becomes tribal, and a lot of our lives are built on tribal kinds of systems, where there's those who are in and those who are out, those who fit into the pattern and those who don't. Sometimes it's about skin colour or socioeconomic class or status or career or sporting clubs and teams. No, that's a big one. Political parties, nationalities, all sorts of things, religion, faith, even within faiths, belief systems and theological kind of principles and things that you must adhere to. And we define who's in and who's out. We build barriers and fences around what we believe, what we think, and who we include. And there's often gatekeepers who sit on the edges and are responsible for letting people in or keeping others out. A bit like bouncers in a nightclub who determine who comes in and who stays out, who's in the street. A lot of our systems are like that. And when newbies come in to want to change the system or do things a bit different or look at it another way or contribute to the grand picture but in a different way, it's not always tolerated well, and they're excluded. This week, as we continue the journey of Jesus in this section from Mark 8 to 10, he's walking to Jerusalem. It's kind of an enacted parable as he walks to the cross, to his death. And he teaches those who follow him what it means to follow him, what it means to live in this way of God, this reign of God, which is antithetical to much of the world. It turns power and greatness upside down. Last week he was saying that true greatness is about humility and vulnerability, about serving people, becoming the least. And we think of the great saints, men and women in history, religious or not, those people who do great things are often humble or serving everyone. They don't think greatly of themselves. And this week it keeps going, and the disciples come up to him, led by John, and say, hey, look, there's a fellow over there who was casting out demons or healing in your name, doing good things in your name, and we told him not to because he wasn't following us. He wasn't with us. He wasn't part of our system. We didn't give him permission. We didn't approve it. We didn't write a note of approval. You can use our name. It's whatever. And you can almost hear in Jesus' response the exasperation and frustration. Oh, what do I have to do to get through to you lot? Don't you understand? God's reign is for everyone. And he says quite clearly, those who are not against us are for us. And that's a profound thing. If they're not opposing us, then they must be for us. If they're doing good, if they're loving, if they're bringing healing and hope and life to people, isn't that what God's on about? Isn't that what I've been telling you? Isn't that what this whole thing is about? And Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem to die, to give his life for this thing which is greater than the world. This way of love. And it's in giving up, surrendering and letting go that new life comes and flourishes in the world. And so he says to them, this is a really important point for him, obviously, because he says to them, look, if you stop those people, those other ones, those people who want to come and experience God's love, if you stop them, if you become gatekeepers that keep them out, it would be better for you to tie a millstone around your neck and be thrown into the ocean. It's almost like the only real evil is stopping people from expressing and experiencing love, the love of God. I mean, all love is found in God and comes out of God and reflects God. And if you stop people, that's evil. In fact, if your eye causes you to do this, pluck it out or cut your hand off or whatever it is. If you stop people coming to me, coming to God, receiving this love and expressing it, then you're lost. And it's, in a sense, it's us wrestling with our own egos, our own need for control and power and to be in charge. And it's wrestling with our egos and with our own being and wrestling with who we are and what stops us from loving deeply and allowing others to love deeply, to live together. Those scars will be part of who we are. There's a story I read just the other day. There's a fellow, John, he's sharing the story of himself, and he, along with another fellow, were ministers in a church, in different churches but in the same denomination. And they both stood on opposite sides of a very significant divide. You couldn't say it was the most crucial, critical divide in the whole of Christianity. You know, it was a moral, ethical, social issue or something. But it gained a lot of attention, and these two were on different sides. And they probably hurled insults and accusations against each other. Anyway, John found himself in a seminar group, an education program that had nothing to do with that other issue. It was about learning something else, you know. He found himself in the same seminar group, and he thought, oh, here we go, this is going to be interesting, you know. If he, I imagine he despises me as much as I probably despise him. Anyway, John answered a question, made a comment into one part of the process. And as he is talking, he thought, this other guy's going to tear me apart. He's going to disagree with me. This is going to start something, I'm sure. Even though it had nothing to do with the issue that really divided them. Anyway, when he finished, the other guy spoke up and said, hey, look, I agree with John there. That's great. You said that really well. I couldn't have said it that well. That's it. That's true. And John was kind of caught. He thought, hang on. What's going on? And in that moment he stopped in that moment of grace and receiving grace and its gracious response of the other guy, he stopped and he thought, you know, we disagree about something significant, but it's not the most significant thing. And it's not what God's really on about. And maybe there's a bigger picture here and there's room for both of us. And it's not about who's right or who's wrong in that issue. It's not about the belief systems we both hold. Because both of us are right and wrong in what we believe. And we've drawn this line in the sand, but maybe Jesus is coming and wiping that line out and wants us to work together in whatever ways we can and to respect each other. And he said it was receiving that grace, that gracious opening from that other fellow being gracious, stopped him and opened up. Almost like started to wipe that line in the sand away a bit, take down the fence, the barrier that was being built higher and higher between them. And he said, I think it's grace and love. When we show that and receive that to another, these barriers and divisions break down. When ethnic groups that are colliding actually sit down and see one another as human beings and hear each other's story, when we confront our enemies and listen to their story and allow them to hear ours, something dissolves. These barriers that we've imagined and built there are pulled down. I think that's what Jesus is on about. There's people going around doing good in his name. Excellent. That's what God wants. Let's celebrate that rather than try and impose them and control them and make them conform to whatever we think or our power and control. Get rid of your power, your control, your ego and your need to be right and work together. Be inclusive. There's a story that a minister who works in the rural regions of New South Wales shared. He was talking to an old farmer, and this farmer said, you know, mate, close into the city there, they farm with fences. They build up fences to keep their animals in and wild stuff out and thieves and whatever else. They build fences to keep animals in and everything else out. Out here, we farm with water holes. We build water holes, billabongs, dams, because the animals learn that water is the essential thing for life and they need it every day. So they know where the water hole is and they keep coming back and they don't venture too far away from it. Now, it's not just our animals that come, but all sorts of animals may come, and it doesn't matter. We farm with water holes. And I think that's a metaphor for the church, isn't it? That instead of building fences that keep people out and in and protect us from difference and diversity, we should be water holes that nurture everyone, that gives everyone this life-giving water, that nurtures life and hope and faith and love, that feeds us with the love of God and invites us into the journey. Let's build water holes and pull down our fences. Let's rub out the lines in the sand and follow in the way of Jesus, who invites everyone to come and experience the life and grace and love that God has to offer.